Hey everyone, it's Felicia from We Buy Your Land for Cash. Today I want to share with you some factors that will help you figure out the value of your Florida land. As a landowner in Florida, there are 14 key influencers that you need to watch out for. These things can really make or break your land value. When my company invests in Florida land, we check these things very carefully. And if you want the pro tips for each of these 14 factors, make sure you fill out the form. I'll put the link in the description of this video, and you can grab your own free copy. So first one, chain of title. This is the biggest factor. Not all deeds and property transfers are created equally. The best type of deed is a warranty deed. And this means that when you purchased the property, the seller pledged or warranted that they owned the property free and clear of any outstanding liens, mortgages, debts, encumbrances against it, and that they warrant this is true for the history of the property. So that's the best one. Not every property is sold with a warranty deed. Accessibility. Some properties are only reached by a county easement or an unofficial, sometimes privately owned trail. This normally isn't a problem for most Florida properties, but you still need to be aware of it. If you can only access your property through a swamp or by crossing into a neighbor's lot, then your land value is inherently capped. Dues. Outstanding dues against a property have a huge impact on its value. A lot of people don't know that the outstanding dues get transferred to the new owner when a piece of land is sold. So if you don't keep up with your property taxes, a tax lien can actually be filed against your property. And that's a legal claim against your property while there are debts owing. This can be filed either by the county or by an individual looking to kind of take over ownership of your property. If you pay off the taxes, you can have the lien removed. The only way you can prevent a tax lien from being filed against your land is to keep up with the burden of annual taxes and pay them every single year. That's kind of the only way to prevent it. Land use. So land can only be used for specific purposes, and unfortunately, you don't get to decide what those purposes are. Land can be restricted at the county or at the municipal metro city level. Now, a lot of people think they can drive their RV down to Florida in the winter months, park it on their land, and live there for half the year. This is not a guarantee, and we actually know from experience, I know from personal experience, that many counties in Florida just won't allow you to camp or RV on your property. That's just a no-go. HOAs and POAs, so that's a homeowner or a property owners association, are quite common in Florida. They can be a good thing. You know, they often take care of things like lawn maintenance, upgrades and maintenance to common spaces like a workout center or a pool. And you probably wouldn't mind an HOA if you're a snowbird who owns a condo in Southern Florida, because that way the HOA will take care of the property and the facilities while you're away, while you're up north or wherever in the hot summer months. But for vacant land, HOAs and POAs are often seen as negative because you're paying all these additional fees and you aren't really getting any additional benefits. So HOAs and POAs can bring down your land value because they have their own annual costs and limitations on land use. Utilities. Power poles are common, but not a given with residential Florida lots. It's certainly not a given for larger agricultural plots out of cities. And it can be really expensive to have electricity brought in. And on top of that, a lot of Florida counties don't approve of alternative power sources. City water and sewer is the best option for Florida land, but not having these isn't as bad as not having power. In this case, you could install a septic or drill a well. However, both of those are pricey and could be a negative factor in determining your land value. Flood zones. Flood zones are quite common in Florida because the state sits so low, and the size of the flood zones there are growing fast as well. Your property might be okay this year, but in 2 years from now, it could be in flood zone AE. It just depends on the weather patterns and severity. Unfortunately, this means that there's a high chance your Florida lot could one day be in a flood zone. If your property is in a special flood hazard area, you are required to purchase flood insurance. Wildlife. If you are an out-of-state owner or aren't intimately familiar with the area surrounding your property, you may not be aware that there's protected wildlife living on your lot. And in southern Florida, protected wildlife can include the burrowing owl, gopher tortoise, scrub jay, and a couple different types of plants. For protected and threatened species, you're going to need extra permits before improving or building on your property. These additional permits can be very expensive and could bring down the value of your land. Wetlands. Wetlands in Florida filter and clean the water we drink and provide a healthy habitat for wildlife. And that's fantastic. It sounds great, but it can be a big pain for you if you want to build on the property, and often has a big negative impact on land value. If you're building on wetlands, you'll have to watch out for damaging existing wells, and this will require a special permit from the county. Furthermore, you're going to be constantly fighting water on wetlands property, and that does not bode well for property value. So another example of that is mangroves, which are often found in wetlands areas. Again, they're very important because they support sustainable coastal and marine ecosystems. They also help to protect land from extreme weather events, but they're really bad for land value because they're protected. And you can't destroy a mangrove habitat without permission from the county and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So both those things can really bring down your Florida land value. Junk. We have made the mistake of buying property with junk and abandoned trailers and cars on it. And let me tell you from experience, it was very expensive to have it all cleaned up. That one property had old boats that were like hollowed out, rusted out, holes in the bottom, abandoned vehicles, trailers, large objects like that you can't just kind of pick up with a trash bag. They really hurt the property value. Neighbors. Unfortunately, how a neighbor uses their property affects the value of your property. And thankfully, there are often zoning codes and restrictions in place that prevent things from getting too out of hand, but the rules might not cover every distinct situation. So imagine you've purchased a lot in Southwest Florida that you want to retire to. You move down there only to realize that one of your neighbors has decided to use their property as a halfway house. Or maybe they're just really rowdy. They're outside with loud music, drinking, socializing all day, all night. You can hear their music from inside your house with the windows closed. That's isn't really the type of environment I would want for retirement. It's not exactly relaxing. If your noisy or annoying neighbor isn't breaking the zoning rules or municipal bylaws, there's often not much you can do about it, even though it's terrible for your property value. You could always try filing a complaint with the sheriff or the local police office, but they might not be able to help you out if there are no laws being broken. Market prices. Similar to bad neighbors, this is a tough one to accept because it's out of your control. And this is why location is so important for land ownership. If your property is in a metro area, you can expect more volatility than in a completely rural area far away from cities and towns. The volatility can either work in your favor or against it. So you ride the high when times are good, but when times are bad, the floor can really fall out from underneath you. Natural disasters. Natural disaster recovery is becoming more and more important. FEMA and the National Hurricane Center have data showing the increasing frequency of major storms. And unfortunately, a lot of Florida is in a very high or relatively high risk area. This means that the ability to recover is a must-know for landowners. There are some areas of Florida that handle recovery quite well, like Miami. Miami is an international hub, and it's crucial for the economy there that it minimizes any downtime from natural disasters. Rebuilding after hurricanes can take quite some time, and if the city or the county can't support a healthy recovery, your property could be flooded or covered with debris for months, leaving your land value negatively affected. Topography. Sloping is not something that can be easily fixed. One solution would be to bring in a bunch of fill dirt, but that can be really expensive. And for most buyers, that solution is just out of reach. If the slope is really severe and not fixable, your property value is capped because the property uses are limited. So for example, if your lot is too sloped for building, or would cause a building project to be astronomically expensive, that takes out a ton of value to potential buyers, right? It's just too much of a challenge. Now, I know this can all feel very overwhelming. A lot of landowners who have inherited or been gifted property, or who may have bought it sight unseen, might not be aware of these factors and how they can negatively impact their land values. And if you are one of these landowners, don't be hard on yourself. It's so difficult to keep track of all the factors affecting land value. It's like trying to track a moving target. If you do own land in Florida and don't want to deal with the headache of valuation and trying to account for all these changing factors, don't worry, you do have other options. The quickest and easiest option for you to get rid of your land headache would be to sell to an investor. So that's like my team here at We Buy Your Land for Cash. With an investor, you can expect no commissions or fees, no closing costs, no hassles, no marketing or work to sell the property. Can be done in less than 10 business days, and you get cash in hand. If you'd like more information on how that works, or want to know what kind of cash offer we can give you for your Florida land, you can fill out the short form on our website. I'll make sure that goes in the description below for you. So hopefully this video helps you understand some of the different factors that could affect your Florida land. Don't forget to grab your free copy of the Florida Land Value Guide. There's a pro tip for each of these factors that we went through. So just click the link below in the description, tell me where to send the guide, and it'll be in your inbox within the hour. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know if this was helpful. I want to hear from you guys so I can get the best possible stuff for you. Make sure you subscribe so you get more information just like this. If you have any questions about these factors, leave a comment below and I'll reply with an answer and help you out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.